In light of Bill 26, the Traffic Safety Amendment Act 2011, the hospitality industry is calling on the provincial government for help in extending late-night public transit services and cab availability. Now, while I understand that taxi licensing is under municipal jurisdiction, I am wondering if the province will help the industry out with the public transit piece of the puzzle. To the Minister of Transportation, will the Minister commit extra funding for late-night transit service in Edmonton and Calgary to help patrons of the service industry adapt to this bill?
The Honourable
Mr. Speaker, in fact, we have talked to the hosting associations and the restaurant associations and talked about the availability of public transit and taxis. And Mr. Speaker, it's not only about that availability, it's how we can work with those associations to support individuals that are impaired and give them the flexibility to have a safe ride home.
The Honourable Member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Premier, given that yesterday the Premier had promised a civic education campaign on the new blood alcohol limits, will the Premier commit to not enforcing this bill once it passes the House until this campaign, this education campaign, is completed?
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, it's very important that when we introduce new legislation that Albertans understand how it will impact them. It's going to be important once this legislation is passed to make sure that we have a deliberate plan with respect to the drafting of the regulations and the ultimate proclamation, and of course that will have to include a very extensive public education campaign, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member.
And so this all sounds like a lot of work, and so this all sounds to me that given that this bill is being rammed through this short session without much time for debate or contemplation, and given that the hospitality industry is also calling for a delay in passing the bill until more consultation can take place, the member from Fort McMurray Wood Buffalo was right. Will the government pull this bill and refer it to committee for further review and bring it back in the spring?
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, it was very interesting to consult with our Minister of Transportation today with respect to some of the concerns that people have had with respect to it. What I have heard over and over again from Albertans, Mr. Speaker, whether they're in the hospitality industry or otherwise, is they are completely supportive of the objectives that we're trying to achieve. They're completely supportive of what we're trying to do to protect families on roads, Mr. Speaker, that the legislation is the appropriate legislation, and that we will work with industry and we will work with communities and Albertans to ensure that the impacts are very clear and that people understand the consequences as we move forward, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Currie.